Okay, I started with the video talking about the heavy lifting computer performance, but this is also a phone. How does RedMagic do the phone stuff? First, I want to get a sense of who's coming to videos like these. If you're watching this, do you own or have you ever owned a gaming phone? Drop me some comments down below. I have a huge hardware fascination with RedMagic, taking the idea of a gaming phone to an exotic conclusion. I've really enjoyed my time with ROG and with Black Sharks. I was a huge fan of the Razer phones. They're all crazy, powerful devices with unique gaming features, but RedMagic takes that one extra step in adding a built-in cooling fan. The design on gaming hardware is maturing, a little like gaming laptops. There's still an edge to the device, something industrial or anime inspired, but I like the slightly more toned down look a little better than some of the previous Mountain Dew fueled aesthetics we've seen in the past. I'd honestly be happy if we went back to hard edge slab like the Razer or even a Sony Xperia. It's kind of refreshing how direct this design is. We can point to numerous mainstream phones that are almost as hefty, but they try to trick the fingers into thinking the phone is sleeker than it is. The RedMagic just kind of owns that it's a little chunky. It's really not that much chunkier than other premium phones with big batteries. The traditional RedMagic accents are here. There's the toggle switch changing the 7 Pro from phone mode to gaming mode. The other side has basically everything else. The fan exhaust, power button, volume rocker, and the really clever shoulder triggers. It's a hardware tour de force. The audio game is strong. The speakers are maybe too loud. They might be the loudest I've used on a phone this year, but at peak output, depending on what you're listening to or what you're playing, we're getting just a bit crispy. Honestly, I can't run these speakers at full power using the phone at arm's length. It's too loud. So at a more comfortable volume range, they come in full, and we're nowhere near that kind of distorted playback. Also, we gotta shout out the single most beneficial universal port a phone can have. Rejoice, for there is a headphone jack. And it does not suck. No, seriously. This is a solid premium audio port, outperforming the Black Shark 4, falling a bit behind the ROG, but head and shoulders above most of the phones that still can cable some audio. It's very good quality with a decently punchy amp and should be a great source for most gaming headsets out there. Good gaming requires good audio, but it also needs a fancy screen. So here's the funny thing. The RedMagic 7 has a higher refresh rate display than the 7 Pro. Well, RedMagic is throwing their hat into the under display selfie camera ring. That came out really awkward. The selfie camera is under the pixels of the screen, and it's surprisingly well done. If you saw Samsung's terrible implementation of this idea on the Fold 3, the RedMagic is absolutely the next generation version of this idea. There's a tiny rectangle of pixels which are just a little different than the rest of the screen, but it's practically invisible when darker colors are on display. I have to really be looking for it when lighter colors are up, and then I can kind of make out the borders, but it's most noticeable when I'm viewing the phone at an angle at my minimum focusing distance to my eyes, and I'm moving around that light image to get those pixels to change. You know, exactly the kind of way we all totally use our phones, right? Not just something to complain about in a tech review with a camera right up close doing macro photography. No, seriously, it's really impressive. But this does bring up a fair comparison point. Hiding the selfie camera is an aesthetic benefit, and you still get a 120 Hz display. The RedMagic 7 has a slightly larger forehead bezel where the selfie camera lives, and a 165 Hz display. That said, I don't think I've seen any games hit 165 frames per second. Seriously, if there are any fun games that can play at that refresh rate, please, I'm asking, I'm not being snarky here, please drop me some comments down below. It's really difficult finding a good list of games that support faster refresh on all phones. I digress, back to the 7 Pro. The screen is solidly bright, it's readable in sunlight, but it doesn't seem to have any extra brightness boost like some other premium phones can achieve, just like a temporary burst of brighter output. The haptics are really good, but when it comes to typing, there's like a dual pop. It's almost like they're trying to simulate a tactile keyboard with an activation and a release. But unfortunately, on a touchscreen with haptics, it just kind of feels like lag. When I'm trying not to think about typing, I find I make a lot of mistakes. But when I turn off the haptics for typing, my typing is perfect. So it really is the pulse feel. For other situations, applications, I really like the feel of the motor, but I just wish I could use it on more games. There's a really limited number of supported titles for this 4D touch feedback, and in those titles, there's not really a lot of rumble to the experience. It would be nice if the haptics worked more like an audio channel reading the subwoofer signal. Again, something akin to what an Xperia might do. Got to talk about the cameras, and it's an area where we got to balance pros and cons. The cameras are okay. I don't think anyone's going to be shocked if I say this, but this phone won't be in my top 5 bestest cameras of the year. That's not going to happen. The 7 Pro is built with a hyper-specific demographic of customers in mind. These cameras feel a little last generation, but that's still decent territory for light use. Point and shoot photography, you can capture a little video. It's really not a chore to get a solid image out of this hardware. I am kind of surprised by the selfie camera. I mean, it's not half bad. Details are a little soft, but I mean, it's a selfie camera. But pinning down who I think this phone is for, I think it's just as likely someone might use this camera to take a selfie as they might be inclined to stream some gameplay. I know there's an argument for harping on camera tech because so many reviews use camera as the filler content for pretty photos and videos in their reviews. But I also think expectations on this phone are likely to be different given the obvious niche the 7 Pro is aiming for. I mean, getting into a little behind the scenes here. I know if I ask people, do you want a deep dive on the cameras here? I feel I'd get a whole bunch of people saying yes, but I doubt that video would really be watched, other than to garner comments from people that just want to hate on the cameras. You know, they're going to roll in to pat themselves on the back. Oh, I knew those cameras were awful. We're so hyped up on an idea of winners and losers, and camera comparisons are dramatic YouTube content. If you buy this phone for what it does well, I don't think you're gonna struggle much with the cameras. You'll get a feel pretty quick for what they can do. Now, battery life as a phone is tricky to determine. There's no one way to use it, and like I said in my performance video, the phone will do exactly what you ask it to do. Turn on all the eye candy, crank the screen, play a game, and you can be dead by lunchtime. Manage your performance and screen settings, and you get a solid daily driver with plenty of screen on time. It's the power and charger settings that really set this apart. It does kind of feel like a gaming laptop. You take a high-spec gaming laptop and you run it on battery power, and your gaming sessions will be very short. If you do your phone stuff on the battery and you do your longer gaming sessions plugged in, you get the best of both worlds. And there's not only a charger in the box, but it's a really nice 65-watt gallium nitride fast charger, and it tops this phone off shockingly quick. But there's also the charge separation feature. Like HS Power Control on the Xperia, you can plug in and game, but the power only goes to running the phone. It bypasses the battery, where you'll see almost no charge or discharge while gaming. It's an incredible way to improve longer-term battery health and avoid some of the battery degradation. I gamed hard for an hour and I saw 1% drain on the battery. You can use the phone more, but put fewer charge cycles on the battery. And it's even better if you compare it with a little power bank when you're out and about. Radio performance has been very good in my use. The 7 Pro went toe-to-toe with the OnePlus 10 Pro on some informal 5G testing around my neighborhood, made great use of my Wi-Fi 6 router, showed support for VoLTE and Wi-Fi calling, and I have to throw out one special little consideration. I'm using Mint Mobile right now for my personal SIM, and the RedMagic has been the first phone I've used since signing up that included APN settings for Mint out of the box. Not huge, but it was kind of nice. Lastly, chatting out the software, we should be able to build some expectations on price and hardware and support. RedMagic is not a company known for aggressive software support. Since getting the phone, I have gotten a maintenance OTA, but crazy exotic hardware priced this competitively, I'm sure we can expect the compromise balance being longer-term operating system updates. There's still a hardware versus software conversation to be had, which is fair. But one area we should keep expectations in check. Into the actual phone software, subtle tweaks to the RedMagic skin, I like. It's still a little edgy, but mostly familiar as a phone, and then you flip the switch to get a more console-like layout for your game catalog. It all makes sense. And it shouldn't be too tricky for folks to figure out if they've ever held a modern Android before. Where you should spend a little time is on the gaming software. There's an intense collection of settings and modes, performance options, and plugins. The only addition I'd want to see, and I hope they're inspired by this idea, on the Moto Edge Plus, there's a one-button toggle to stream directly to Twitch, and I'd love to see something like that here on a proper gaming phone. Okay, so wrapping this all up, RedMagic 7 Pro is looking to combine two gadgets into one, a communication device and a gaming device. If you haven't seen my first video on the heavy performance, I'd recommend giving that a watch to see what those limits look like. But this is the highest performing pocket computer I've used this year. There are some obvious compromises, like having a phone with a fan probably means different things for water resistance. But this is gaming hardware that can not only do things other phones can't do, this is gaming hardware that can do some things a Nintendo Switch can't do. I don't think it's outlandish to look at this phone, consider the games you enjoy playing, and pick this up as an all-in-one solution over buying a portable console and a separate phone. I get excited when a phone is so clearly built, stepping away from the lazy notion of average consumer. We never need to utter that phrase in a review of this phone because nothing about this performance or user control is average. Just like how you wouldn't try and get your great aunt to buy an over-the-top gaming laptop. I'll never understand why so-called tech enthusiasts simp so hard for average. But sure, landing this plane, balancing fair pros and cons, if you want to truly get all the performance this SoC can deliver, this is the top solution available this year, and it handles the rest of the phone stuff decently well too. Now, I will of course leave some links down below where you can find more information on the RedMagic 7 Pro, maybe shop one of these bad boys online. As always, thanks so much for watching, sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support lately has been fantastic. The sharing, subscribing, checking out my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, and all the people joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is the coolest collection of tech pals in the universe, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, not so much on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next review.